let's talk about teams. And they added a couple things in here that you're not going to find in the text that I think have to be in there because it might be a test question, but it really is a matter of I want you prepared to sit down and pay attention to what the world is like after college. So let's look at teams. A lot of times you have these cross-functional self-managed teams where employees get together. It's a little bit like the matrix organization where everybody's working together on a project. You see over here, you'll have the doctor, and the doctor's working in this room. And literally, it just depends how it's set up. I have seen doctors, for instance, an orthopedic doctor, where literally there's two different operating rooms side by side. The doctor goes in, they do this thing over here, and they change out this knee over here. And literally, they step out, they clean up a little bit, they change their outfit to make certain they're not carrying germs, and literally they step back into the hub and they turn around. They do exactly the same thing in the operating room physically next to them with a different patient for maybe exactly the same surgery, but on a different patient, and they'll have a whole different team while the team in the original one is closing up and everything in the process. You have the self-managed team where you have the boss here, boss leaves over here, and then somebody else takes over. So you have these self-managed teams. They're all professionals. They've done it before. It's very precise, and they have to really know their stuff inside and out. But you have these self-managed teams that get along well, and they all do something different. So you have that aspect of it. It's wonderful. That being said, cross-functional teams work a lot when the voice of the customer is heard. And if you're the customer getting the surgery, I want my knee done right. So it's a big deal. So you have a clear purpose, you communicate the goals, you really want to have maintain the culture. You want to be accountable to each other in the team process and be specific instead of being vague. Instead of sometimes people trying to avoid hurting feelings, say, you know what? I didn't appreciate that happening one time. Now, let me use an example for negotiations. I've been in negotiations many times, that more, well, actually dozens or maybe 100 plus, whatever that may be. And one time I had the union, we agreed to a set of rules. And in the rules, we sat down and we agreed that we wouldn't talk about anything outside of the room until we finished negotiations. I had the union president leave the room and start saying bad stuff about what was going on in negotiations. And so the next meeting, I started out, I says, let me make myself clear. I heard that you said this. If you said that, you're wrong, and you've actually lied in this meeting. My expectation is that you keep your word. Now, I don't know if you did or not, but I'm going to put you on notice. If it happens again, I'm going to call you out and I'll go public too as well. We both agreed for the following. Now, we're not necessarily a team on the same side, but we met as a group. And do you know what? I was specific instead of vague, and that behavior stopped. Sometimes you got to be that blunt and that direct to have a successful team. We did well, and actually, because it was embarrassing to him, we finished negotiations faster than I thought. Not really good. So always pay attention. You know, there is the old thing, it's called forming, storming, norming, performing. Write those numbers down. Forming, storming, norming, performing. You know, when you start building a team, and I want to include this in here because this is critical information to you, you're going to go through a process. First of all, you're going to get to know each other. Then you're going to have problems, which is normal. You'll have to sit down and do like I did, maybe sit down and say, hey, you said this, knock it off. Sometimes you'll have to have the storm. And then once you get over that, you'll be able to perform on a regular basis. And then you'll get a pattern as to how you're going about doing it. Now, this whole thing of, oh, we can get our team together and all rah, 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 it doesn't work that way. You have to be able to learn how to trust people in the process. You have to get to know each other. You have to know what role each person plays in there, what kind of focus is out there, and then the challenges you're going to have because there's a lack of trust when you start. And that's normal. The trust only happens, it doesn't come in a pill and you can't take it because, oh, we're on the same team together, so I trust them. No, it doesn't work that way. It works because trust is built up over a period of time. So forming, first of all, get to know the people. And then you're going to have some differences. They're going to lead to conflict. You might have open debate. It could be blunt, it could be brutal, and you need to sit down there and express yourself. You may have power struggles emerge as everybody jockeys for position before you start getting the rhythm. One time I was in a meeting and everything else, and I had a college president in a meeting, and he thought he was special. And so they had a secret plan. And so we had a committee of 14 people, and he's reaching across the table because somebody didn't sit down and do their script, and he's tapping on the table. Everybody's supposed to say this. And I said, you know what, that's really cute. I says, but we're going to have open dialogue over here with or without you. So you can be honest and upfront and stop your plotting behind the scenes. We're going to have a meeting, and we're going to have this over here. Call them out on it and have that. Start defining the expectations and boundaries. If there's frustration, saying, you know what, in the process, I see this over here. I don't think that should happen. We should all work together. Sit down and have that. And you might have a lot of problems you have to overcome. But first use form, and then eventually you're going to have disagreements in the process. Now, disagreements aren't necessarily bad because it helps define the roles of who's doing what and what the overall objective is. What do you want to have accomplished over here? Another thing that I've always done, especially on a team, if I want them to work, is that if I'm chairing it, sometimes even if I'm not, I go around to every single member on the team at the very end of the meeting. Number one, I want to clarify that each person has had something to say. Herbie, I didn't hear you talk the entire time. Before we close our meeting, do you have any comments that you want to say? I ensure that every single person on my teams has spoken. Now, there's two reasons, and let me give you one of them. Number one, sometimes that person's brilliant and they have something to say and just felt overpowered and they didn't say anything. Number two, Herbie's not going to escape that room and say, they never asked me. Okay, no, Herbie has a chance. And if Herbie does say that, I can call them back and say, hey, dude, you had an opportunity to talk and you chose not to do it. Don't you ever say that again. You had a chance to talk, and I'll do it publicly if it happens publicly. You want to sit down and have everybody participate. And once everybody gets past this aspect of the forming and the storming, then you're going to find harmony. And I'm serious about this, but you know what? This never happens the first meeting. It seldom happens in the first 4 or 5 months. A lot of times your committee needs to keep on going. And after 6 months to sometimes 3 years, you're going to find this harmony. You're going to get trust and respect. You're going to know what to expect from this person. You may not even like them, but you'll actually know who they are and what they're doing. You look at their roles, you look at the challenges, you look at different aspects, and then eventually you're going to achieve this peak performance if you stay together and if you conquer the forming, storming, norming, and then finally performing. Put those down in your notes because you're going to see them happen in your life, not in this class necessarily, but you're going to see them happening in the real world out there, and you need to know about that. Let's talk a little bit about the networking because a lot of times our technology nowadays gives us a chance to network an awful lot. We can see things in real time. When we talk about virtual organizations, you can have a team across planet Earth. You got to pay attention to who's in charge and what the timelines are. But that being said, a lot of times you want to be transparent so other companies that you're sharing things with can sit down there and work together. You also have the opportunity to have what's called a virtual corporation. On a virtual corporations, a lot of times you want to sit down and you'll have this core of this is what we do as a business. And then you have this company you hired to do this part, this company, this part, this company, this part, this company, this part, and this company, this part. One of my sons went and he worked one time, he quit a job and drove me crazy. He started a job in January working for an accounting firm, and they promised they would lay him off April 30th when he first started, which sounded awful. I thought, you're going to leave a job and do this in the process. So they had him doing taxes. Okay, well, ended up he did taxes. They paid him $20 an hour and they charged $125 an hour for his services. Okay, but he learned how to do taxes, learned how to operate different kinds of accounting machines and everything else in the process. And eventually they took his job and they moved it overseas. So some brilliant person over in India did him and they paid him even less money. And so they have somebody input the data, the person in India would get it, and they would do all the taxes. They would be back super fast, and then some person with the CPA would sign it off. So they would pay the company in India $25 to have an entire tax return done. They had a CPA sign it. By the time it's done, the labor involved was about 45 minutes on their part. And then they would sit down and charge $600 for about $75 worth of time. So that's a nice way of doing it. That's a virtual corporation. They firmed it out. On the group norms, there's a couple things and rules. Make certain do your job. Don't use any commentary that's inappropriate. Always be clean or organized. Don't post anything online. You don't want anybody to see it. Respecting everybody else. Don't drink in the job. Never at work. Those are group norms. Sometimes you put the norms for your group online or you put them in the room. And if somebody disrespects the norms, call them out in the process. When it comes down to the virtual corporation, you can see over here, you have this core and all these other firms out there, you've outsourced them all in the process. Here's Nike. Nike is absolutely one of the most popular shoes on planet Earth. You have Nike doing two things. They make great shoes, and some of the designs coming out are spectacular to the point that people choose them to wear at the Olympics to sit down there and break world records seriously. And so they have great designs. They also have great marketing, but they don't make anything. They take their design and they farm it all out. They are back to here. They are the core firm. They do two things, marketing and design. That's it. They don't produce anything. They don't distribute it. They don't advertise it. They hire all those things out. And the core firm, Nike, does this in the middle. So pay attention to that in the aspect of what that can be and what can you do in the process. Do you need human resources? Do you need custodial services? Do you need, you fill in the blank? Can you do this virtually and farm it out to somebody else? So you have cross-functional self-managed teams. Keep in mind the forming, storming, norming, performing. Be smart, work with others really comprehensively, and think about the concept of virtual corporations, how you can use that to your advantage for success for your business as well. Take care.